Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show, we have
Erin Wright.
Yes, we do. Erin is the founder or co-founder, founder of the Wide for the Win Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And she is a vault of information on going wide. Yeah, on going wide and just all things wide. And she's just such a delight. It was a great podcast.
Yes. And she had so much information that we're actually going to have her back on later to talk about some of her other things. But we really delve into like going from KU to going wide and her advice on that. She really gives a very detailed way to do it. I mean, some just really good advice on that. And just talked about her marketing and how she markets her books. And she spends, I think, she said she doesn't spend very much on ads, if anything. And so she talks about how she markets her books without using ads.
Right. And I don't think she does ads at all.
Yeah, it didn't sound like it. So it's been a little while since we recorded it. So our brains may have forgotten a tiny detail, but in the majority, she just uses other types of advertising and other types of marketing. So we get into that. So that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great interview.
Yeah. So this week is our second week with Book Vault as our supporter. So remember that, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But we do have a one new supporter, Piper Dow, and she chose the dog emoji, which I love. I don't know if anybody's chosen that before.
I don't either. I do love that one. Thank you, Piper. We appreciate it. We appreciate all our supporters. Thank you so much. It lets us know. I think Joanna Penn says this, but it lets us know that you enjoy the podcast and you like what we're doing. And I feel the same way as Joanna. So
yes, I do too. Yeah. We're so thankful for all our supporters. We really appreciate it. Yeah. So what have you been doing this week?
Well, not much. Actually, that's not true. I've had 2 consulting clients, and then I have another one today, and those have been fun and gone well. I've been not well. I've been kind of sick, so I've just been kind of laying low, and I'm not doing swimming lessons this week, so I've stayed out of the water as much as I can, and but yeah, so that's about it. Just kind of, I've been watching Bull. It's kind of an old show, but it was on NBC, I think, or CBS, one of those. He's a trial consultant or trial scientist. He corrects people. And anyway, I've just been, I haven't been feeling well. That's what I've been doing, just kind of binging that show. I watched all The Witcher.
Okay.
So the new season of Witcher is in 2 parts. So I watched all the first part of The Witcher, super good. And then the second part, I think, is July 27th. And it's good. Also, one more thing, y'all can tell where my head's been. Silo on Apple TV.
Goodness.
I finished this season. Y'all, it was so good. I've never read the books. I never read Wool. But it was really good.
You liked it?
Yeah. I can't wait for the next season. It's really good. So, so if you like dystopia kind of thing, and then you might really like that. So,
yeah.
So on
that's great. Well, that's good. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I tried this new series, and it's okay. So it's a story within a story. It's a spinoff in the Agatha Christie world, but Agatha Christie had a character who sometimes assisted Poirot, Mrs. Oliver. And she was an author, and she poked fun at herself. Christie poked fun at herself, I think, through this character. And this character wrote about this fictional character. And so they have taken that fictional character and made a series out of it. And it's Swedish television made it, I think. I hope I get all this right. Swedish television made it. The character is Finnish in the books. And so he's a Finn, but Swedish television made this story. And basically there's not that much known about him. And so it was really funny to watch it because there are some nods. I just like the first 2 episodes, like they're one story in 2 parts. And there's all these nods to Agatha Christie and to this character in it. So it's pronounced Yerson, I think is how you say it, but it's like Hjerson, I think is the spelling. So it's on Topic, like the channel in Prime. You can find it there. But it came out a couple of years ago. It is so interesting because it's like it's just so funny that it's like a fictional character from a fictional character. So it's like very lots of inside things. Like if you like Agatha Christie, there's a couple of references to her, and then there's a couple of things that she mentions about him. But it's really funny in the books because Mrs. Oliver is always saying things like, "Why did I write about a Finn? I know nothing about the Finnish people." And like, so she's kind of making fun of like writing about Perot, who's Belgian, and she doesn't know. So that's a long tangent on my most recent television rabbit hole.
Well, you'll have to send it to me. So because I love them. I love those too. So anyway, what else has been going on with you?
Well, so I'm getting back in the groove of I'm catching up on a bunch of stuff. I did a bunch of email. I'm working on my store and learning a lot about that. We're going to do a podcast next time about direct sales. So getting into all that and kind of figuring out what I want my plan to be. So working on that. And then we've been doing a lot of yard work around the house. Fortunately, I'm not doing it. I'm like watching my husband supervise the neighbor's kids. I was like, please get somebody to help you spread out the sod. So he's got some neighbor kieds over and he's paying them. Thank goodness it's not me. I'm so happy it's not me.
Yes. You got out of the duty.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
then next week I'm going to Cozy Con and I will let y'all know about that. So that's all I have going on.
All right. Well, we should get on. Do we have more about Book Vault or?
We do. Yes, we do. Because Book Vault is our sponsor this month and they launched, by the time this goes out, they will have launched their printing in the US.
Woohoo!
And yes, we're so excited. So that will be really helpful for US authors. It will be, the cost will be cheaper and the shipping will be faster. And they are just a great company to work with. I've used them. In fact, I can put this in the group. I ordered copies of what will be my Kickstarter book. So I'm going to I just ordered them from Book Vault. They got here the other day. So I have the hardcover and the trade paperback, and they look beautiful.
They look fabulous.
Yeah. So very
they
excited.
Do. They
these
look
actually
really good.
Came from the UK, but not too late. Because I ordered these before they launched, but now I'm planning on ordering even more.
I think that's what I admire most about Book Vault is they seem to really listen to their customers.
Yes.
From the interview we did and then just listening to other people, they really do listen to their customers. So that's great.
Yeah. They even had a survey out. I don't know if it's still up. It was on social media the other day that if you like, what would you like to see us do? Like what special things would you like?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So they're very, very plugged into the author community, which we appreciate.
Yeah. Thank you, Book Vault. For sponsoring us. We appreciate it.
Yes. And if you're interested in Book Vault, you can go to wishidknownforwriters.com/bookvault.
Yep.
All right. I guess we should get on the interview.
Let's do it.
All right. Here is Erin. Well, today we are so excited to talk with Erin Wright. Hi, Erin. How are you?
Hi, good. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited you're here. And we'll let Sarah read your bio and then we'll get started.
Yes, we have so many questions. Erin Wright is a full-time author, but unless you're a fan of sexy cowboys, you've probably heard of her because of Wide for the Win Facebook group. She co-founded the group back in 2019 and has been posting in the group instead of writing books ever since.
Yep, that's about right.
Tell us how you got into writing, Erin.
Oh, sure. I mean, I was your typical kid, where I entered all the writing contests and I won a couple and whatever, but I didn't think that you could actually, make a living writing. Like that's not something that's a real job, right?
Right.
That's just a pretendsy's job. And so, I had all the jobs out there. I was in libraries for 7 years, including 18 months as a library director. And I mean, I worked all sorts of different things. I really enjoyed it. I was a teacher. And then I found an online group that was talking about how you could be an author. And I joined that, like, oh my gosh, did you know that like there's people who are actually authors? Like, that's amazing. I was so like just blown away. And at first I just hung out in the group and like basked in the glory that was being around real authors. Cause I mean, like I couldn't actually be a real author. Like that's crazy. But like I could hang around real authors.
Yes.
And so I actually started out with ghostwriting. And then I sort of went, well, my husband told me that I was being an idiot and that I needed to just write for myself. So, but yeah, it's kind of a roundabout way of getting in there. I needed the training wheels of writing for somebody else first to make me go, oh, this isn't actually as complicated as I thought it was going to be. So.
Right. That's great. I love that because that's a great way to put it. The training wheels of writing for somebody else. That's really, I don't think people think about that when they think about ghostwriting. I think they.
Yeah. Cause they provided the outline for me. They did all the publishing. All I had to do was actually finish a novel. Which for a lot of authors, like actually finishing the first novel is the hardest part of all of it. And by having somebody else who had deadlines and they needed it done and blah, 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 then it actually happened. And I ended up writing 3 novels for them in a series. And then I thought, this is doable. This isn't rocket science, y'all.
Right.
This is doable.
Right. It sort of takes the pressure off a little bit because you're doing it for somebody else. So it's a good way to get started. We've talked to other people who have done that too. It's fascinating. Anyway, so what is your definition of success?
Oh, probably being able to control my own career. Even if I were super successful as a trad pubbed author. Let's say that I took on J.K. Rowling, right? And I became the next J.K. Rowling in terms of income. I would still really struggle because I wouldn't be able to control so many things about my own career. I guess when you get super huge, like, then you can negotiate these sorts of things into your contract. But I'm not meant to work with a publishing company because I always have better ideas than them. I mean, sorry, publishing company, but like, that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yes, exactly.
So I want to be able to do my own covers and my own blurbs and my own marketing. And so having control over my own career is a big sign of success for me. As opposed to handing that over to somebody else. And then paying my bills with it, right? So like, this is my full-time job. I don't otherwise sling hash browns down at the local diner or something to pay my bills. This is it. This is the whole kit and caboodle right here. So if I'm not making money from writing, I'm homeless, which is a pretty good incentive to write, honestly. So
keep you going.
Those two things, those two things together, I would say are how I would define success.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft when you started?
I feel like one of the things that I struggled with when I first started writing was knowing how to reach my market. When I first came out of the gate, because I write cowboys and firefighters, right? And sexy firefighters who are also cowboys, because of course I do.
Of course.
And
Crossover.
And so I had all these ideas of like, I should advertise my books in, Western, what is that called? There's a magazine anyway that like focuses on the Western United States, or like Horseman Today, or, these different kinds of magazines like that. Like I was just thinking way too deep and complicated for what was actually, I write romance novels where the main characters are in a small town and they're cowboys, but if you love romances, then you're going to like my books. So I don't need to cater only to people who own horses. I was making things way more complicated than I needed to, which is par for the course for me. So yeah.
That's funny, because a lot of people will start like in the genre and then they'll branch out and go, okay, where else can I find? Maybe I should go to like, I guess it's called psychographics, where you figure out the broader ways to reach people that maybe in those areas you'll find your people. But yeah, you can't go wrong targeting romance readers who like horses and cowboys, right?
And cowboys and firefighters.
Right. And my next series is going to be military. So
there you go.
Sexy guys in the military. You really just, in fact, what I think I'm going to do is have a cowboy who joined the military, who then comes back and joins the local, volunteer firefighter department, and just wrap it all up with a neat bow.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Genius. That's genius.
Oh, that's great. There are a lot of people, I think, that go from the military to like firefighting and EMT type stuff. So sort of based in real life, also, not just fictional crossover stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, we talked about marketing a little bit. Is there anything that you wish you knew about like the craft of writing, like just the writing itself?
Yeah, that I was going to become better than I was when I started. When you first start writing, and I see this all the time with people I do consultations with, their first babies, their first books are, maybe not as perfect as they could have been. And so they get rough reviews. And it's hard, because it's like, I worked so hard, like that was labor pains that are out of control. And so you want to think that book is just perfect. And you go back as you get better, and you're going to go, oh, wow, that first attempt was awesome. How about if I clean some things up here? Right. And so I am really glad I actually was saved from myself by knowing, or by being poor, excuse me. It was very useful.
Saves a lot of us from a lot of mistakes, because we just can't afford it, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yes, because I really I love audiobooks. That's my primary way of consuming books, because I can listen while I'm doing dishes, laundry, whatever. Because I don't have a lot of time to sit and read. So like from book one, I wanted my books in audio. I wanted my books in hardcovers. I wanted my books translated into other languages. I wanted all these things. And I didn't have money for any of that. Because I was poor. And so I didn't. And that gave me the flexibility that later on, I went back and I rewrote probably at least a half dozen of my books.
Oh, really?
At this point. Yeah. I think that I'm unusual in that all of my books take place in the same world. So all the
Mhm.
characters know each other and cross over between the books. So I need each one of them to really pull their weight, because if I lose somebody out of my world, then maybe they don't come back. Whereas if I write different series and somebody doesn't like this particular series, well, they're going to maybe like this one over here that's way different. Well, all of mine are in this world, and I have to have those, they have to be really strong.
Right.
And so, yeah, I rewrote, like, to the point of needing new ISBNs and the whole kit and caboodle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Several of my books.
that's the kind of the downside of doing a series. Series can be great because they can pull people in and they'll keep reading. But like, especially if you just have one series and you have one starting point, and if that's your first book and that's your weakest book, that can be really difficult to get people to keep going.
Yeah.
So that's
almost
smart
impossible
to go back
these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
impossible.
And that's actually that's how I finally decided I would go back and rewrite my very first book. Was I had a chance to interact with one of my, like, I had a total fangirl moment where there's an author in my genre, anybody who reads my genre, Catherine Anderson, you would know her name. And she's, traditionally published, and she writes these fantastic books, and I just loved her. And she was doing a live in Facebook years ago, and I had a chance to interact with her, and I'm like, just so you know, you're the reason why I write this genre, and I love your books, and you're the best. And total fangirl, total. I am happy to I will happily admit that. And she's like, oh, what's the name of one of your books? I'll pick it up. And my gut reaction was Not Accounting for Love. Like, because that was my first book. And I was like, not that one, any book, but that one. And at that point, I'd had a book club on Accounting for Love. I'd hit the USA Today bestsellers with Accounting for Love. It was my perma-free. It was what I was advertising to everybody. I was like, if I don't think it's good enough for Catherine Anderson, it's not good enough. Like I've got to take a step back and I've got to rework this. So I tore that whole sucker apart and rewrote. So yeah.
Wow. So how long did that take you?
Only a couple of months. Which for me, other people be like, well, I write a book a month. And I'm like, that's cool. That's not me. So only a couple of months for me is really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it ended up about 50% longer. It just was a lot more developed, because it was my first book under me, right? Instead of my ghostwriting names. But yeah, it just needed to be better. So I was able to do that because I hadn't paid for translations and audiobooks and all these special print, whatever. If I had done that and I had dumped $15,000 in various, formats and such, I wouldn't have touched it, because you can't do that. So even if you have the money, like if you could just spend it all at the beginning because you got a windfall because a relative passed away and you have $5,000, you could just dump it into your career right at the beginning. Don't do it. Honestly, if you get 5 years down the road and you reread the first 3 books that you've written and you think they are as amazing 5 years down the road as you did the day that you published them, you haven't learned anything. You should be better 5 years into this.
Yeah.
You absolutely should be.
Yeah. There's always it's always difficult to go back and read your first books, I think, because usually you have grown and changed. But if you're careful, like we're saying, you were held back by financial limits.
Careful is not the word. I was impeded and was not allowed to do what I really wanted to do.
But that's one of those things that's like, thank goodness for, the mistakes or the things that we're blocked and not able to do. Sometimes that actually turns out to be a blessing. So that can be a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness for poverty.
Yeah.
I had to borrow my money from my family for my first book club because I couldn't afford it on my own. and I paid them back with interest. But like, I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. That is to put it mildly. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of work. And when I first started out, I was ghostwriting and I was doing PA work for other authors and I was proofreading and I was also still teaching on top of trying to write my own books. So yeah.
Yeah. But not everybody needs to go back and rewrite their first books. But if you have a book that's not selling or the reviews are not giving you what you want, or you have people reading the first book and they're not reading through to the second book, then those are the things you need to look at. And then maybe you do need to go in and rework some stuff. So I admire you for doing that. I think that's awesome.
Well, and there's some people that are like, oh my God, I would rather, stick myself in the eyeball with a rusty fork than go back and rewrite a previous book that I wrote.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be me. Yeah.
Right. So I am not saying like, this is what everybody should do.
Right.
But a lot of it is like, think about if you were to meet one of your like idols in the writing world and they were to pick up that book.
Yeah.
How excited would you be about that?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about like rewriting? Would it make a difference in your career long term? Or should you just sort of pretend like that first series didn't happen? That's what a lot of authors do, right? Like they'll stop advertising or they'll even unpublish because it's not great. I didn't have that choice because that was the start of my whole world. So I couldn't just lop off the first 5 books and be like, just kidding.
Right.
Those totally didn't exist.
Just never mind.
Right. Yeah, that just wasn't an option for me.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you were starting over today, what would you do differently?
Oh gosh. Man, that's hard. Because everybody has mistakes that they made, but I feel like in so many ways, mistakes are how you learn.
Yeah.
So
they are. Yeah.
Yeah. My gut reaction is to say, not have gone into KU. Right. Because I know that I'm now known as the Queen of Wide, but that was not always the case. And I started out in KU just like everybody else because #duh, that's the only way you can make any money. Hello. And so I was in KU and I figured out that that was not the world for me and to, go wide. And then I started Wide for the Wind down the road and blah, 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 blah. But if I had started Wide from the jump, I wouldn't have the ability to as deeply empathize with people who also started out in KU and realized this isn't for me.
Right.
So even though it was a mistake, it's also something that I learned a lot from.
Right.
And I know how confining it is to be in KU because it was when I realized that I couldn't be in libraries that finally the straw broke the camel's back. Being a librarian, I was like, you what? What do you mean I can't be a library? What is this travesty?
What'd you say, Willis? Yeah.
So yeah, you can't publish your books on your own site or give them away for free because it's all restricted. Like, no. Just like I couldn't be traditionally published, I can't be KU. I have too many of my own ideas about how the world should work, damn it.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Yeah.
Well, this is a good segue to one of our questions about tips for going wide, because there are a lot of people who are in KU and lots of people would like to go wide, but they're afraid to, or they're worried, so what tips do you have for someone who would like to go wide, and any advice?
Absolutely. So I have talked to well over 400 different authors at this point, because I do consultations in case anybody didn't catch that, where I help people figure out how to go wide and be successful when they're wide and blah, 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 blah. So, and I have quite a spread from authors who've never published anything to authors who are super successful in KU, but now want to go wide, to authors who've never been in KU and have only been wide, to, you know, every permutation you can think of, traditional publishing to indie, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that I have noticed is there's some advice out there that you should start out in KU, build up your readership, and then go wide when you have readers. And that always is a difficult thing, because a difficult way to run a railroad. Because the truth of the matter is that KU readers, for the most part, do not move with you when you go wide.
Yeah.
There are a few who will read your grocery list, right? Whatever you put out, they're going to read it. Doesn't matter. But most KU readers will say, that sucks that you're not going to be in KU anymore. Well, good luck. Guess I'm going to go find something else to read now. So if you spend your time building up a readership in KU and then try to go wide, it's really hard because people are like, well, I'll wait until I'm successful in KU and then I can afford to go wide. No, because it takes a long time to build up readership and sales on wide platforms.
Yeah.
And so if you have already become successful in KU, almost always, just always, that entails a lot of bills. You now have to pay for a large mailing list, your website, PAs, ads, covers, ARC teams. You have a lot of expenses that come along with building up that readership. So now you're going wide because you're successful. Woo, you have the money, except for you really don't, because you have all these ongoing costs. And now you're trying to take a big pay cut and go wide, and you can't afford it. I talk to a lot of authors who are like, I want nothing more than to go wide, but I have to make X amount of dollars every month or my family's out on the street and I can't afford to take the pay cut. So I am stuck in KU. And the worst thing in the world to do is to go wide and then go back into KU, because the wide platforms notice and they don't take it kindly. You're much better off to just stay in KU and don't go wide. Yeah, honestly. And I that seems really weird for me to say, but
it seems not what you would expect to hear from the Wide from the Wind Facebook group.
Right. But if you can't financially afford to go wide, take a pay cut, and hang on for a year, you shouldn't be going wide. Not until you can, because otherwise you will just be setting yourself up for failure. And at the end of the year, you're going to have pissed everybody off. You're going to have pissed off your KU readers who are angry that you pulled out and went wide. You're going to piss off the wide retailers who are upset because they gave you merchandising opportunities and then you pulled your books back out and went back into KU. You're going to have pissed off your wide readers who found you while you were wide and now you're not anymore. And what do you have to show for it? Right?
A lot of stress.
A whole lot of stress and angry people.
What is your... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I was just going to say the best thing is to go wide when you don't rely upon your income from writing to support your family. I have people who are like, well, I mean, I don't make that much, but I do make money when I'm in KU and I don't want to lose that money. And I start digging in and I find out that net, they're making $150 a month. And I'm like, okay, all right. I know that you're like, hey, I'm making money as an author and you don't want to give that up. but is $150 actually keeping you off the streets?
Right.
Or could you actually just give that up and go wide and rebuild from there? And they go, oh, no, you're right. Like they were so focused on, but I make $400 a month in KU. And then you find out that, a vast majority of it's going back into AMS ads.
Right.
It's like, be willing to give that up and spend the time building your wide platform where I have never run a Facebook ad in my life. I don't know where the Facebook ads dashboard is at, right? I don't. I have no idea. I found it once like 2 months ago on accident as I was stumbling around. I'm like, oh my God, this is where it's at. And then I wandered off and that was the end of that. Like I couldn't find it again. I don't run AMS ads. I don't run BookBub ads. I don't rely on any of that because I've spent years now building up my wide readership and relationships with merchandisers and it's just a completely wildly different strategy to do well on wide than it is to do well in KU.
Yeah.
Can you make a lot of money wide with Facebook ads? Oh, absolutely. Sky Warren is the queen of that, right? But you don't have to.
And
in
that's
KU,
key. Yeah.
Almost guaranteed that you have to.
Okay, so I have
want to do that.
two follow-up questions for you. I think one would be like, what if somebody does have like this big backlist and it's all in KU? Does it make sense for them to take out a couple of series and go wide with a couple of series first and kind of learn how to do wide and then eventually move everything out? What would be your recommendation for somebody like that?
Okay, so honestly, and this is also going to come across as funny, but take your lowest performing series wide first.
Really?
Because yeah, absolutely. If you're going to screw up on something, screw up on the one that you make no money on.
Well, I guess you're
Fail faster, Jamie.
Fail faster. That's right. Forgot. That's our new motto.
I forgot too. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, I mean, it's like, the first time that you do a big presentation to be in front of a million people, it'd be better if it's 10 friends in your living room. So,
right.
Make the mistakes on the series that doesn't make you any money, and then you can learn how the wide platforms work in terms of how do you upload to a platform, right? What are the steps that you take? And there's a lot of optimization things that are true about wide that are very different from how Amazon works. And so just learning all the nitty-gritty stuff. And then once you are feeling good about being able to upload to my platforms, being able to sell on my platforms, even if it's just a little bit, because it definitely will be, especially if you upload your worst series only, then you could probably start with your oldest series and move that over and start going, and then get to the point where your next book you're releasing wide and just stay wide from there.
Yeah. It's really
so. I think that's super helpful and a lot of kind of counterintuitive what people would think. So I think that's great information and advice. And then my second question is, when you said you didn't use ads and stuff, you don't depend on that. I know everybody who's listening to this is saying, well, what do you do? Right. So how do you market your books?
They're yelling in the speaker right now. But what do you do, Erin? Okay. So the first thing that I do is everything for me personally. There's a million different ways to be successful wide, but this is what I personally have done. Everything I write is in the same world. That works in my favor in the fact that if I can get somebody into my world, they have 15 books that they can read, right? That's going to appeal because it's in the same small town. It's not just in the same genre, it's in the same small town. And so there's, intercrossing between all of them. That's not possible for most authors. They don't want to stay in the same world. I get that. So, but I just, I'm all about admitting my privilege. And that is a privilege that I have in terms of being an author, is that I do write in that same world. Setting that aside, cross promoting with other wide authors was a big part of my success. I've done multiple box sets with other wide authors, and I'm not talking about box sets that are like 50 books and whatever. I'm talking about box sets that are actually out there to help you grow your readership, which is going to be a smaller box set,
right?
6, maybe 8 authors. I'll put in your perma free. You're not making any book free that isn't already free.
Right.
You're not having to worry about splitting royalties.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Put your perma frees in. Everybody advertises that perma free to their own list. Go for paid newsletters. Go for a book club. And if somebody in the group is great at Facebook ads, let them have at it. But the cost is really quite minuscule by the time you split apart every cost, into 6 or 8 people or whatever.
Right.
Then it's not hard to afford a cover and some, free
formatting.
And yeah. I mean, I always just did that as part of the thing because I own Vellum, but yeah, absolutely. So cross promoting with other authors who are wide, who are in your genre and your heat level. If you and heat, yes, romance, but also if you write mysteries, think of heat level equivalency of like how much gore is on the page, right? So if you're a cozy mystery author who writes all about cupcakes and then you try to cross promote with a mystery author who it's all about the dead people, all over the, there's blood going everywhere. Like, yes, you're both mystery authors, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. So mentally, replace the words heat with whatever is applicable in your particular genre, because you've always got those variations in a genre.
Right.
And so it's really important. Like, I don't cross promote with a wide author who writes billionaire bad boys, because that's nowhere close to what I write. I write small town, steamy cowboy romances. So my books are going to be medium heat, comp authors. So, okay. All right. Enough of blathering about comp authors and that sort of thing. Number 2, free is king on wide platforms, much more so than on Amazon. The thing about Amazon is they don't like free because they want you to use KU. They want KU readers to only check out books in KU. If a reader could get a book for free and they don't have to pay for KU to get it, that totally strikes at the heart of the KU model. So Amazon loathes free books, right? And you can definitely see that in everything that they do, up to and including the fact that you can't even put your book to free and you have to price match that bad boy and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So that's Amazon. Wide platforms don't have KU. Free sells. That's how you make money. You go down to Costco, Sam's Club, you log on to Netflix, whatever it is, there's always a free cookie, trial, cracker, dip, whatever it is. Yeah. Because this is how you get readers. And so if you are not willing to put at least the start of a series to free, you are going to struggle as a wide author. Yeah. I can think of a wide author, and if she's listening to this, yes, I'm thinking about you, who refuses to make any of her books free. She is very successful. However, she writes in a very small niche, and she's been writing for a very long time. She has a big catalog. And so she's built up this readership for over a decade now. For the average author coming in now, what she does is just really not what I would consider to be a strategy. It's more of good luck in terms of timing and writing ability and timing. So perma-free, free is king. Advertise your first in series. be willing to box set up your books. Box sets do really well on my platforms. And don't think that you are limited to the $9.99. You are not. That is a Amazon only thing. So on wide platforms, $10, $100 doesn't matter. You get the same royalties. And so one of the things I should really, really do that list that totally exists for me is taking my 15 books and putting them into one mega box set. And allowing people, because right now I have this series in box sets, but the way I released books, like I would release like book 7 in my Cowboy series, and then book 2 in my Firefighter series, and then book 8 in my Cowboy series, and then book 1 in my Musician series, that sort of thing. So if you actually wanted to read them chronologically, you have to skip between series. And so if I were to put together a massive box set where it was actually in chronological order from beginning to end, like I would do so well with that. I should totally do that. Anyway.
Yes.
Yes, you should. And I'm making a note. That's such a great idea.
That is a great idea. Yeah, that is a great idea.
But diversification is super, super important when you're a wide author.
Yeah.
So quite often we are thinking, okay, ebooks, KU versus wide. And that's like the end. You got to think wider. You got to think bigger than that. Because there are serial apps, there's selling direct, there's Kickstarters.
Right.
I mean, the list goes on in terms of all the different formats, languages that you can get into. And all of that helps you diversify your income so that maybe this month your ebook sales on Amazon have dropped, like for a lot of people they have. But that doesn't mean that your paperback sales took a sudden dive, or your audiobook sales fell off a cliff, or your serial apps aren't doing well anymore. Right. So you've got to think about all the various ways that you can use the same IP. So I have my books, because I do write romance, I have them up on Radish. I have them up on Kiss and Dreamy and, iReader and all these other sites. And then I'm making money from those sites alongside the regular big platforms, alongside selling them direct from my own site. Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. I've always thought that even if you're in KU, you can go wide, with print and audio, and you can start doing some things to kind of prepare the way, even if you're in KU. And then if you're not, then you've got all these, it's almost overwhelming, the different options you have.
100%.
Yeah. And I do have a question. So if someone was in KU and wanting to go wide, and, they do have this readership that's not going to follow them more than likely. Have you seen people have success by selling direct, like launching the book on their website?
Their store or something.
Their store or, like selling direct, launching the book there for their KU readers at a discounted price, but then they get all of that money. And then go, releasing wide, or no?
Yeah. So there's,
or I guess you don't have to wait to release wide. You can do it all at once. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're in KU, you're just not paying for
books. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's all free. So if you are really looking to maximize selling direct, in that case, I don't feel like it's so much the cost. It is they get that's extra that they can't get from their own,
that's a
their own regular platform.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Because I find it fascinating. KU authors are constantly saying, well, all you have to do is download a new app and put it on your e-reader, and then you can still get books that are in Amazon. And they're like, so I don't understand why you're saying that if I'm in KU, I'm not accessible to non-Amazon readers. And okay, let's set aside, branded e-readers where all you can read are books from that platform, like Nook and Kobos and such. set that aside for a second. As a KU author going wide, all you are asking your readers to do is actually pay for the book.
Right.
They don't have to move platforms.
Right.
They don't have to install a new app. They don't have to learn anything different. It doesn't have to be in a different library. They can use exactly the same thing that they are right now. All they have to do is actually pay for it. And they're not willing to do it.
No, they're not. Yeah.
How loyal are they? Not loyal at all. So that's why it's every time somebody's like, oh, I'll just build up my readership on KU, I just want to like beat my head against some really large flat surface, because that's just not the way the cookie crumbles. So what I would say is if you are trying to make the transition from KU to selling direct, selling wide, whatever it is that you're wanting to do, think about what is it that you can offer the reader that would convince them to buy from you. And this is actually for anybody who is listening to this, who's already wide and is thinking about trying to sell direct. All of this is applicable to you too, because readers like comfort. It's very easy to go to their site of choice, whatever it is, and buy a book. Then their books are in the same app. They already have their credit card saved. They already know how to maneuver in that app. They already know how to, it's really hard to get somebody to do something different than what they are already doing. So you have to be able to give them something that makes it worth their while to do that. Almost always, in order to build up a really loyal readership, you don't want that to be price. Because as soon as you raise it by $1, they're gone. Right? People are like, oh, I don't know if I should raise my prices from $3.99 to $4.99. Dude, if your readers are that concerned about $1, they're not your fans.
Right.
So stop focusing so much on pricing and start focusing on what can you give them that's separate and above and beyond. So character art, deleted scenes, behind the scenes, whatever, early access. That's a huge one, especially if you're going to get into Ream and things like that. People pay really good money for early access because they're so excited about getting your book early that they're willing to pay for it, and in that case, if you are able to do that, you're not actually doing anything extra. You're not having to create a t-shirt and send it out to them. Right. You're just doing what you're already doing. You're just publishing it ahead of when you would normally be publishing it. And so for the right author, that can work really well. Okay. For the wrong author, that could be a total disaster zone. So,
That's great. Well, tell us about, so you say you were all in the same world. Tell us about your town of Long Valley, because it's a real place, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that's, in fact, my mom grew up in Montana, and so I grew up going to Glacier National Park as a kid. That was where we would go camping. It's always up in the mountains and pine trees and mountain lakes, and that's just where my heart is happy. And I will take mountains over beaches any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Bahamas versus Montana. I'm going to be in Montana. See, I wouldn't want to be. I'm out of here. So my husband actually gets sent to a conference that was training for his job up in Long Valley. And he calls me the first night and he says, Erin, you've got to come up here. And I was like, why? What's up? He's like, no, this is like, you will love it up here. And I'm like, really? Because I had never been up there. I mean, it was only like 4 or 5 hours away from where I was living at that point, but it just was another mountainous place in Idaho, which, spoiler alert for Idaho, there's a lot of mountainous places. So that's, and so he's like, no, we've got to come back here, you and I together. And I was like, okay, all right, cool, whatever. We were right in the middle of a move, and he got sent for a week's training up in the mountains, and I got to move us by myself. So I was already not happy. And so
you were already resenting Long Valley. Yeah.
Right? How dare you be up in the mountains without me while I get to pack? I was very unhappy. Anyway, so after the move, we went up there for the trip, and we went driving into Long Valley, and I was like, so do you think we could move up here? Like, do you think that's a thing? We could totally move up here, and so I thought, if I'm going to be writing my own books, because this was right when I was starting to consider that transition from just being a ghost writer to being a real writer and writing, for myself.
Right.
And I thought, I could write books up here. And then every day that I'm writing, it would be like going on vacation, which is not really how it worked, but
it's a nice fantasy, right?
It was. Tells you how ignorant I was back then. Oh, you're so cute, Erin. You're adorable. Writing is way harder than that. But it does give me, this is the awesome part. It gives me a financial business related reason to go up to Long Valley. And so I was actually just up there this last week doing book signings at the local library. I sell my books in the local bookstores. And they say Long Valley on them. And so it's like, ooh, so it's starting to get to be a little bit more of a tourist area, because there's ski resorts and, large lakes that are so much fun to play on. And so they have a lot of tourists coming through. And so then it's like, oh, I can buy a part of Long Valley and, still read about it when I go back home. Right. So I get to go to Long Valley and write it off as a business expense, which is bloody brilliant, if you ask me.
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that is great.
So I go up there every other. My plan for 2023 has been going up there every other month. And part of that is not only to do research and book signings and sales and stuff like that, but also take a lot of pictures. So it's kind of fun because my husband is a photographer. And so we go up and take a bunch of pictures, and then we use that to create book covers and calendars and bookmarks and those sorts of things from real Long Valley. And so, and I don't have to pay for the rights to these pictures because my husband does them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
That's almost as good as having a spouse who will run the ads for you.
I tried that, and my husband tried to learn. This was back when years ago, he tried to learn Facebook ads, and he didn't enjoy it any more than I do. So we decided that was enough.
He took another route. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, you're doing a lot of really interesting things in your marketing, and you're also have a lot of knowledge about libraries. But I think we're running out of time. So I think would you be interested in coming back on sometime in the future and we could dig into those subjects? Would that work?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I've done like multiple podcast interviews with different podcasts because I can I'm like, the machines that you put a quarter in and you crank the handle and then it just keeps going. Yeah.
You get your money's worth.
Yeah. Yes. You know what? You get all the money you paid to listen to this. You get that amount of value out of hearing my words. I guarantee it.
Oh, well, that would be awesome. We would love to talk to you more about this because I think you do have a lot of knowledge to share, and it's not 45 minutes is not long enough to get it all. So, but for now, why don't you just tell everybody, first of all, we always like to ask, what's the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success? Kind of as a wrap up question.
Okay. Be super stubborn and refuse to do what everybody else does.
There you go.
Because everybody else was in KU. And when I went wide, I literally did not know another single author who was wide at that point. I didn't know a single soul. I didn't even know the names of all the wide platforms. I didn't care. I was going to learn it because I was going to get my books into libraries. And so super stubborn.
I think that's great. That's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. I have a friend that she says it's not who the most talented people are, it's who the most persistent people are who are successful. And I think that's true to a huge extent. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Substitute
absolutely.
stubborn for persistent.
Oh, that's such a nicer way of saying it, truly. So just be more persistent. Yes.
There you go.
Yes, that makes me sound less like a donkey.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell people where they can find out more about you, more about your consulting and all of that, and your books. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if you go to Erin, the girl's spelling, so Erin, Wright, like Wright brothers. So erinwright.net. .com was already taken by some. I can't even believe there's another Erin Wright out there. But anyway, so erinwright.net. And that is where you're going to find all of my books and such. There is an authors tab, but also if you just go to erinwright.net/consulting, that's where you can sign up to do a consultation with me. And I can look at your catalog and what you have going on in your life and give you specific advice rather than, generic out there to everybody. And even more important, you should definitely join Wide for the Win. So we are on Facebook, and we have recently opened up in Circle also. And so it's just a really great place to get advice and learn from other people. It's a terrific community, and the Facebook group just surpassed 15,000 authors. So,
that's great.
It's a little crazy. When I started it, I thought that we would have like max 100 people because that's all who was wide, right? Like there's nobody who's wide. That's just crazy. And so I never expected it to grow like this ever.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah,
well, it is.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good place to get information and to connect with other writers. So that is awesome. And we'll have those links in the show notes, and those will be at wishidknownforwriters.com. And we also want to be sure and remember Book Vault, our sponsor for July. And their link would be wishidknownforwriters.com/book vault. So thank you for coming on and talking to us today. We really appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, I'm excited to go check out the link because Book Vault is one of the sites that I have on my list to learn more about. So
you should. And we did a podcast with them. So yeah, it was great.
They're awesome. Super easy to work with. Great quality. So 2 thumbs up.
I'm going to go check them out right now.
All right. Well, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week.
See you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.